My name is Harper. I am 22 years old, and this morning was supposed to be the proudest day of my life. I stood in my tiny apartment bathroom, adjusting my cap and gown in the cracked mirror, checking my phone every 30 seconds like some kind of addict. Zero messages, zero calls, nothing from the people who were supposed to matter most. I had sent reminders all week, careful little texts to the family group chat about timing, parking, where to meet afterward. Every single message showed as read. But now, scrolling through my phone with shaking hands, I discovered something that made my stomach drop through the floor. I had been removed from that family chat, and when I checked my mother's social media from my roommate's phone, I saw them. All of them. My entire family gathered around my younger sister Sienna at her surprise baby shower, faces bright with joy, champagne glasses raised. The shower was happening right now, at the exact same time as my college graduation ceremony. Before we dive into what happened next, can you tell me where you are watching from? Drop your location in the comments because I love hearing from all of you around the world. And if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, go ahead and hit that like button so I know I am not alone in this. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because what my family did next, and what I did in response, is something you will not believe. Trust me, this story takes turns nobody sees coming. Now, let me take you back to how I got to this moment, standing in a graduation gown with mascara starting to run, realizing my family had chosen my sister's party over the culmination of 4 years of my blood, sweat, and tears. I sank onto my apartment floor, cap still perched crookedly on my head, and let the memories wash over me like a tide I had been holding back for years. This was not the first time. God, it was never the first time with them. My mother, Patricia, 48 years old with perfectly highlighted hair and a smile that could cut glass, had always made it clear that my sister Sienna was the sun around which our family orbited. Sienna had the beauty, the charm, the effortless way of making people love her. I was the older daughter, the one who tried too hard, the one whose accomplishments were met with lukewarm acknowledgement at best. My father, Douglas, 51 and perpetually buried in his business dealings, measured success in dollar signs and social status. I had neither, so I barely registered on his radar. And my brother Trent, 25 and smugly secure in his position as the son, had simply followed their lead, treating me like the family burden, the one who existed to be mocked at dinner tables and forgotten at important moments. The memories came in flashes, each one a small cut that had scarred over but never truly healed. I was 10 years old at my first piano recital, hands shaking as I played Chopin, scanning the audience for my parents' faces. They arrived halfway through my performance, slipping into the back row with apologetic smiles. I finished, took my bow, and watched them check their watches. We had to leave immediately, you see, because Sienna had a soccer game across town. My moment lasted 7 minutes before it was sacrificed on the altar of my sister's schedule. At 15, my birthday was forgotten entirely. Not postponed, not celebrated late, just erased from the family calendar because Sienna had been asked to prom and my mother needed to take her dress shopping. I came home from school expecting cake, maybe a card, and found an empty house and a note on the counter about where they had gone. That night I ate cereal alone and told myself it did not matter, that birthdays were childish anyway. I got very good at telling myself things did not matter. When I turned 18 and walked across the stage at my high school graduation, my parents did attend, but they complained the entire time about the uncomfortable bleachers, the length of the ceremony, how they were missing Sienna's cheerleading finals. During the reception afterward, my mother spent 40 minutes on the phone coordinating Sienna's competition schedule while I stood awkwardly with my diploma, trying to look like I was not bothered, like I did not notice that even when they showed up, they were not really there. College was supposed to be different. I worked 3 jobs to pay my tuition because my parents refused to help, explaining that their money needed to go towards Sienna's education at a private university. Never mind that I had better grades, better test scores, better everything. Sienna needed support, they said. Sienna's happiness was the priority. So I pulled double shifts at a coffee shop, tutored rich kids whose parents paid me more per hour than I made anywhere else, and delivered food on a bike until my legs ached. I sent money home too, when I could spare it, because my mother would call with tears in her voice about how tight things were, how Sienna needed this or that. I was the family ATM machine, the reliable one, the one who could handle anything because I never complained. 3 months ago, I finally worked up the courage to make an announcement at a rare family dinner. I told them my graduation date, told them it was important to me, told them I wanted them there. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand, her eyes actually meeting mine for once. "We will absolutely be there, honey," she said. "We are so proud of you." My father nodded, looking up from his phone long enough to add, "Yeah, proud." It was the first time I could remember him using that word in reference to me. Something fragile and hopeful bloomed in my chest, something I had tried to kill off years ago because hope hurt more than disappointment. I let myself believe. I spent money I did not have on a nice dress for the ceremony. I reserved extra tickets so they could all sit together. I researched restaurants for the celebration dinner afterward, finding a place fancy enough to make the day feel special but not so expensive it would make my father complain. I planned everything perfectly because that is what I did. I made things work. I made things easy for everyone else. The morning of my graduation, I woke before my alarm, too excited to sleep. I had earned this. 4 years of late nights and early mornings, of juggling work and classes, of eating ramen so I could afford textbooks, of pushing through exhaustion and doubt. This was mine. I checked my phone immediately. Nothing. I told myself they were probably just sleeping in, that they would message soon. I showered, did my makeup carefully, put on the dress I had saved for. Still nothing. I called my mother. Voicemail. I texted the family group chat, a bright, cheerful message about how excited I was to see them. The message showed as read within minutes. No response. I could see the 3 dots appearing and disappearing, like someone was typing and then deleting what they wrote. My excitement curdled into anxiety, that familiar feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the moment when I would once again be the one who did not matter. I discovered the truth by accident, which somehow made it worse. My roommate Jade had left her phone on the kitchen counter, and a notification popped up from Instagram. My mother's account, posting a story. I should not have looked. Some part of me knew I should not look. But I unlocked Jade's phone, my hands moving before my brain could stop them. And I opened that story. There they were, my entire family, dressed in pastels and Sunday best, gathered in my aunt's backyard under strings of white lights and pink balloons. My mother had her arm around Sienna, who was glowing in a flowing dress that hugged her pregnant belly. My father was pouring champagne. Trent was laughing at something someone off-camera had said. The timestamp showed it was happening right now, this very minute, while I stood in my apartment in my graduation gown, staring at proof that I had been erased. The caption read, "Celebrating our sweet Sienna and her precious baby on the way. Family is everything." I felt the nausea hit first, a wave that sent me stumbling to the bathroom. I barely made it before I was on my knees on the cold tile, my cap falling off, my gown twisted around me. I was not crying. I think I was past crying. It was something deeper than tears, something that felt like a structural collapse, like the foundation I had been building my entire life had just revealed itself to be made of sand. I sat there on that bathroom floor for I do not know how long, just replaying every excuse they had ever given me, every promise they had broken. Every time I had convinced myself that next time would be different. I understood finally, with a clarity that was almost peaceful in its finality, that next time would never be different. I would never matter to them. Not as much as Sienna mattered, not as much as their image mattered, not as much as anything else mattered. I called my mother. I do not know what I expected. Maybe some part of me still hoped there was an explanation, some emergency that had pulled them away, some reason that would make sense of this. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice bright and cheerful, music and laughter cascading in the background. "Oh, Harper," she said, and I could hear her moving away from the noise, stepping into a quieter space. "We got confused about the date, honey. I am so sorry." I heard Sienna's laugh, that crystalline sound that had always made people turn and smile. "Mom," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears, flat and distant. "My graduation is happening right now. You are at Sienna's baby shower instead. You did not get confused. You made a choice." There was a pause, just long enough for me to hear the calculations happening in her mind. the weighing of whether honesty or more lies would be easier. "Harper, we will make it up to you, I promise. We can take you to dinner next weekend." I asked the question I already knew the answer to. "When did you plan Sienna's shower?" Another pause. "We have to go, sweetie. We are taking group photos." "Congratulations on graduating, though. We are really proud." And she hung up. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, still wearing my cap and gown, mascara smudged under my eyes, and something inside me broke cleanly. Not a messy break, not a shattering. A clean snap, like a bone setting wrong and then being rebroken so it can heal correctly. I had spent 22 years trying to earn their love, trying to be good enough, trying to matter. And in that moment, staring at my reflection, I made a decision. This ended today. Not with begging, not with anger, not with some dramatic confrontation that would let them paint me as the difficult one, the ungrateful daughter. This ended with silence, with absence, with me simply ceasing to exist in their world just as thoroughly as they had made me cease to exist in mine. I would disappear, and I would do it so completely that they could never find me. The thought did not scare me. It felt like the first breath of air after being underwater too long. I went to the graduation ceremony because I had earned that diploma, and I was not going to let them take it from me. I drove to the stadium in my beat-up car, parked in the lot full of families with balloons and flowers, and walked to the staging area alone. Around me, graduates buzzed with excitement, adjusting their gowns, taking selfies, squealing when they spotted their families in the stands. I found my place in the alphabetical lineup, between a girl named Emma who kept FaceTiming her grandmother and a guy named Isaac whose entire extended family had apparently flown in from 3 different states. I sat down in the folding chair with my name on it, surrounded by joy I could not touch, and waited. When they called my name, Harper Christine Aldridge, I walked across that stage with my head high. The applause was scattered, polite, the kind strangers give because it feels wrong to be silent. I took my diploma from the dean, shook his hand, posed for the official photographer with a smile I had practiced in the mirror. The flash went off. I walked back to my seat. It took less than 2 minutes. 4 years of my life, distilled into 120 seconds of public acknowledgement. After the ceremony, I watched other graduates rush into the arms of crying parents, saw fathers lifting daughters off their feet, saw mothers pressing kisses to foreheads, saw siblings holding up embarrassing signs. I folded my gown carefully, placed my cap on top, and started walking toward the parking lot. That is when Jade found me. She had not graduated yet, still had another year, but she had come anyway. She ran up behind me, breathless, her dark hair flying, and threw her arms around me without a word. When she finally let go, she said, "My family wants you to come celebrate with us. Please, you are not spending today alone." I started to protest, to say I was fine, but the look in her eyes stopped me. Jade had been my roommate for 2 years, had seen me at my worst, had heard me crying in the bathroom when I thought she was asleep. She knew. So I followed her to where her family had set up a picnic in the grass, blankets spread out, food in containers that smelled like home. Her mother, a tiny woman with Jade's same warm eyes, hugged me so hard I felt something crack in my chest. "Congratulations, Harper," she said. "We are so proud of you." Jade's father, a quiet man who spoke carefully chosen words, poured me a glass of sparkling cider and raised his own in a toast. "To Harper," he said, "may your future be as bright as your determination." They meant it. These people who had no obligation to me, who had known me only through Jade's stories, they meant it. The contrast was unbearable. This was what family was supposed to feel like. That night, after I had thanked Jade's family and driven home and changed out of my dress, I sat at my laptop and opened a new browser window. I started with how to legally change your name and spiraled out from there. Cities far from home. Seattle, with its rain and coffee and anonymity. Portland, quirky and accepting. Denver, landlocked and mountainous. Places where I could be someone new, someone without the weight of Aldridge family disappointment pressing down on my shoulders. I checked my savings account. 4 years of working multiple jobs had left me with a decent cushion. Money I had been planning to use for a security deposit on a better apartment. Maybe some new clothes, maybe a real bed instead of the mattress on the floor. Now I looked at those numbers and saw something different. Freedom, escape, a new life. I opened a document and started writing a plan, step by step, everything I would need to do to disappear completely. Not as revenge, not to hurt them, just to remove myself from a situation that had been hurting me for as long as I could remember. I worked until the sun came up, and when I finally crawled into bed, I slept better than I had in months. The first thing I did was block them. All of them. My mother, Patricia's number. My father, Douglas' number. Sienna's number. Trent's number. I went through my contacts methodically, blocking anyone with the last name Aldridge, or anyone close enough to the family that they might serve as a conduit. Then, I went through social media, blocking them on every platform, making my accounts private, removing any photos that showed my location or current life. I did not post an explanation. I did not leave a dramatic goodbye message. I just vanished from their digital world as cleanly as cutting a thread with scissors. Then I waited to see how long it would take them to notice I was gone. A week passed, then 2. I continued my life as normal, going to my shifts at the coffee shop, hanging out with Jade, sending out job applications to cities across the country. I filed the legal paperwork for a name change at the courthouse, standing in line behind people paying parking tickets and filing small claims. The clerk, a woman with kind eyes and reading glasses on a chain, handed me the forms. "Big change," she said. "New start?" I nodded. "The biggest." She smiled. "Good for you, honey." I filled out the forms right there at the counter. Harper Christine Aldridge would cease to exist. In her place would be Wren Collins. Wren, because it was a bird that survived anywhere, adaptable and resilient. Collins, because it sounded like a name that belonged to someone who had their life together, someone who was not defined by the family that had failed them. It was 2 weeks and 3 days after graduation when my mother finally called. Well, she tried to call. The call went straight to the blocked number void, so she borrowed her friend Karen's phone and tried again. This time it rang. I stared at the unknown number lighting up my screen and let it go to voicemail. I listened to the message immediately, hearing my mother's voice shift from confused to irritated. "Harper, I do not know why you are not answering your phone. Stop being so dramatic and call me back. We need to discuss family dinner next month. Your grandmother is turning 80 and everyone will be there. Call me." No apology, no acknowledgement, just annoyance that I was not falling in line. 2 days later, Sienna texted from a new number. "Mom says you are ignoring her calls. That is really immature, Harper. She is upset. Fix this." I read the message 3 times, marveling at the audacity. I was the one who needed to fix things. I was the one being immature, not the family who had deliberately scheduled a baby shower during my graduation, not the mother who had hung up on me to take group photos. Me. I deleted the message without responding. Then my brother Trent sent an email, because apparently, he had never actually been blocked since we never communicated enough for me to bother. Subject: "Stop seeking attention," it read. "This silent treatment thing is childish. You are embarrassing the family. Grow up and call mom." I moved the email to trash and blocked his address too. My mother showed up at my apartment on a Thursday afternoon. I was inside, eating leftover pasta and watching a documentary, when I heard the pounding on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw her standing there in her tennis outfit, hair perfect, face pinched with anger. She knocked again, harder, then pulled out her phone and called. I watched her expression shift from annoyed to genuinely worried when the call did not go through. "Harper," she called through the door. "Harper, I know you are in there. This is ridiculous. I am your mother. You owe me respect. You owe me an explanation." She kept knocking, kept calling my name, and I stood on the other side of the door, feeling absolutely nothing. Eventually, my neighbor Mrs. Chen, a wonderful elderly woman who had lived in the building for 40 years, came out of her apartment. I watched through the peephole as Mrs. Chen approached my mother. "Can I help you?" Mrs. Chen asked. "I am looking for my daughter. She lives here." Mrs. Chen shook her head slowly. "No young woman lives there anymore. That girl moved out last week, left in quite a hurry." My mother stood there for a long moment, clearly trying to decide if this old woman was lying to her. Finally, she left, and I watched her walk down the hallway, shoulders tight with frustration. Mrs. Chen caught my eye through the peephole and winked. The escalation was predictable. My father, who had probably never sent an email to me in his entire life, suddenly found the motivation to type out a message. It was formal, stiff, the kind of thing he would send to a business contact who had offended him. Harper, this behavior is unacceptable. Family is an obligation, not a choice. You are demonstrating a profound lack of character. If you continue this immature display, you will leave me no choice but to cut you off completely. I laughed out loud when I read it. Cut me off from what? They had never supported me financially. They had never supported me emotionally. What exactly was I losing? I saved the email in a folder I titled Evidence and continued with my day. My Aunt Lorraine called from her number, tried the guilt trip approach. Your mother is devastated, Harper. Just devastated. How could you do this to her? After everything she has done for you. I hung up mid-sentence. Everything she had done for me. I tried to compile a list and came up blank. But here is what I realized as the messages and calls and attempts at contact continued. My absence had power. They had never valued my presence. My showing up, my trying, my constant effort to earn their love, none of that had mattered. But my absence, my silence, my refusal to engage, that threatened something important to them. It threatened their image. It made them look bad. How could they explain at parties and family gatherings that one of their daughters had simply stopped talking to them? How could they maintain the facade of being a perfect family when 1/4 of that family had vanished? My silence was a mirror, and they did not like what it reflected back. For the first time in my life, I had leverage, and I was not going to waste it by giving in. The ambush happened at my workplace, which should have been off limits, but my family had never been good with boundaries. I was working my shift at the coffee shop, making lattes and ringing up pastries, when they walked in together. All 4 of them, my mother, my father, Sienna with her growing belly, and Trent trailing behind looking uncomfortable. The coffee shop was busy, mid-morning rush, and every head turned when they entered like some kind of unified front. I was behind the counter, hands frozen on the espresso machine, and I watched them approach with my heart hammering in my chest. My mother spoke first, her voice loud enough to carry across the entire shop. Harper, what is going on? Why are you doing this to us? She had tears in her eyes. Real ones or fake ones, I could not tell anymore. Customers were staring now. The barista working next to me stepped back uncertainly. My father crossed his arms, his face set in the stern expression I remembered from every childhood punishment. Sienna looked self-righteous, her hand resting on her stomach like a shield. We came to your graduation, she said, and the lie was so blatant, so absurd, that I almost laughed. No, I said quietly, you did not. My father stepped forward. You are embarrassing this family with your behavior. This stops now. You will apologize to your mother, and you will come to Sunday dinner, and we will pretend this little tantrum never happened. That is when my manager Keisha intervened. Keisha was 35, had worked her way up from barista to manager, had 3 kids and 0 tolerance for nonsense. She stepped between me and my family with her arms crossed. Excuse me, she said, her voice calm but firm. This is a place of business. If you are not here to order coffee, you need to leave. My father looked at her like she was an insect that had dared to land on his imported suit. I am speaking to my daughter. This does not concern you. Keisha did not flinch. She is my employee, and she has asked you to leave. So I am going to say it one more time. Leave, or I call the police. My mother gasped, actually gasped, like the suggestion of police involvement was the height of rudeness. I am her mother, she said, voice rising. You cannot keep me from my own daughter. Keisha pulled out her phone. Watch me. They left. They had to. The entire coffee shop was watching now. And even my family cared enough about appearances to know when they were beaten. But as they walked out, Sienna turned back and hissed. You are going to regret this, Harper. We are your family. You have no one without us. And then they were gone, and I was left standing behind the counter, shaking, while Keisha put a hand on my shoulder. You okay? She asked. I nodded, even though I was not sure it was true. Take your break, she said. Take as long as you need. I went to the back room and sat on a stack of coffee bean bags and tried to remember how to breathe. What I did not know then was that the public confrontation was only the beginning. They started a smear campaign, reaching out to relatives I barely knew, painting me as unstable, as mentally unwell, as the troubled daughter who had always been difficult. My Aunt Lorraine called again, this time with the tone of someone doing an intervention. "Harper, your mother is worried about you. She thinks you might need professional help. Have you considered talking to someone?" It was almost funny. I was the one who needed help, not the family who had systematically neglected and dismissed me for 2 decades. My Uncle Raymond, my father's brother, sent a long text message about the importance of forgiveness, about how family was forever, about how I would regret cutting ties when I was older. My cousin Bethany, who I had actually been close with as children, reached out seemingly in good faith. We exchanged messages for a day, and I started to think maybe she understood. Then she said, "But you have to understand, Sienna's baby shower was really important. First grandchild and all. You should have been more flexible about your graduation." And just like that, I blocked her too. The private investigator was a shock. I noticed him on a Tuesday, parked across from my apartment in a dark sedan that was trying too hard to be inconspicuous. I saw him again on Wednesday. Same car, same spot. By Thursday, I was angry enough to confront him. I walked right up to the driver's side window and knocked. He rolled it down, looking resigned, like he had been expecting this. "Who hired you?" I asked. He sighed. "Your father, Douglas Aldridge. Look, kid, I am going to level with you. Your dad is obsessive about this. He has got me following you, documenting where you go, who you see. It is weird, and frankly, it is making me uncomfortable." His name was Hank, he told me. 45 years old, former cop, doing PI work to pay for his daughter's college. "I am going to tell your dad I lost you," he said. "But you should know, he is planning something. I do not know what, but he is not the type to let this go. If I were you, I would disappear soon. Like, really disappear." The legal name change was approved 3 weeks after I filed. I had to appear before a judge, who asked me standard questions about my reasons for the change. I told a sanitized version of the truth, seeking a fresh start, difficult family situation, desire for independence. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a kind smile, looked at me for a long moment. "This is a permanent change," she said. "Are you sure?" I had never been more sure of anything. She signed the order. Harper Christine Aldridge was legally dead. Wren Collins was born. I went to the Social Security office, got a new card, went to the DMV, got a new license, updated my bank accounts, my insurance, every piece of documentation that tied me to my old identity. It felt like shedding a skin that had never fit right, emerging as something new and raw but wholly mine. My family was still looking for Harper. They would never find Wren. The truth about how deliberate their cruelty had been came from an unexpected source. Ashley, a friend from high school I had lost touch with over the years, reached out through an old email address I had forgotten I still had. "Harper," she wrote, "I do not know if you will even see this, but I need to tell you something. I was at Sienna's baby shower. I heard things you deserve to know." She gave me her new number and begged me to call. I hesitated for a full day before I did. When she answered, she sounded nervous. "I have been feeling sick about this for weeks," she said. "I should have told you sooner, but I did not know how to reach you. And honestly, I was a coward. Harper, they planned it. The shower on your graduation day. It was deliberate." Ashley had been invited to the shower through her mother, who was friends with my aunt. She went expecting a normal celebration and instead walked into something that made her skin crawl. During the party, while my family posed for photos and drank champagne, Sienna had stood up to make a toast. "I just want to thank Mom and Dad for making today so special," she had said, her voice carrying across the backyard. "I know Harper probably thinks we forgot about her little graduation, but honestly, she has always been so jealous of me. I am glad she is not here to make it about her like she always does." My mother had laughed, actually laughed, and agreed. "Harper does have a tendency to seek attention," my mother said to the group. "Maybe missing this will teach her that the world does not revolve around her accomplishments." My father had raised his glass. "To family," he said, "the people who really matter." Ashley sent me screenshots. She had been so disturbed by what she witnessed that she had taken photos of the family group chat, the one I had been removed from. I opened the images with shaking hands. There, 2 months before my graduation, was a message from Sienna. "Can we do my shower the same day as Harper's graduation? Would be so much more convenient for everyone, and she will get over it." My mother's response sent 3 minutes later. What a good idea, sweetie. Harper gets too much attention for mediocre achievements anyway. This will be good for her. My father agreed. Let her learn some humility for once. And Trent, ever the follower, finally someone said it. Harper needs to understand her place in this family. They had planned it, not as an accident, not as a scheduling conflict, but as a deliberate message. You do not matter. You never have. You never will. I sat on my apartment floor with my phone in my hands and felt something fundamental shift inside me. I had known they did not love me the way they loved Sienna. I had known I was less important, but seeing it spelled out in black and white, seeing the casual cruelty with which they discussed me, seeing how easily they conspired to hurt me, that was different. That was a level of malice I had been refusing to acknowledge. Ashley was still on the phone, apologizing, saying she wished she had warned me sooner. I thanked her and asked her to keep my disappearance secret. She agreed immediately. I stopped talking to your family after that shower, she said. What they did was disgusting. I am sorry I did not speak up then, but I am speaking up now. They do not deserve you, Harper. I corrected her gently. It is Wren now, I said. Harper is gone. The fake emergency came 2 days later. A mutual friend, someone I had not blocked because we barely talked, sent me a frantic message. Harper, your dad had a heart attack. Your mom said you need to come to the hospital immediately. Street. Michael's on 5th Street. My first instinct was panic. Then I remembered Hank's warning, remembered the screenshots, remembered who these people really were. I called the hospital directly, asked for the patient directory. No one named Douglas Aldridge was admitted. I called back and asked again, thinking maybe there had been a mistake. The receptionist was patient. Ma'am, we have no patient by that name in our system. Are you sure you have the right hospital? I was sure. I was also sure it was a trap. One more manipulation designed to force me to reveal myself, to make me come running back like I always had. The final straw, the thing that severed the last remaining thread of connection I had to that family, involved my grandmother. My father's mother, Martha, was 78 years old and one of the few people in the Aldridge family I had genuinely loved. She had always been kind to me, slipping me money when I visited, asking about school, remembering my birthday. When I saw her number calling, I almost answered. I hesitated for a full minute, my finger hovering over the screen. Then I answered. Harper. Her voice was weak, trembling. I am dying, sweetheart. Cancer. The doctors say I only have a few weeks. I need to see you before I go. Please. You were always my favorite. My heart broke. I told her I would come, asked which hospital. She gave me the name. Then, because some instinct told me to, I called her next-door neighbor, an old family friend I remembered from childhood visits. Mrs. Patterson, I said. This is Harper Aldridge. Is my grandmother okay? There was a confused pause. Martha? She is fine, dear. I just saw her this morning. She was headed to her bridge game. They had used my dying grandmother as bait. They had either convinced her to lie or, more likely, they had faked the entire call. I would never know which because I never asked. That was the moment I stopped thinking of them as family and started thinking of them as what they really were. People who would stop at nothing to maintain control, to keep me in my place, to punish me for daring to set boundaries. That night I accelerated my plans. I gave notice at my apartment, 2 months early, paid the penalty. I gave notice at the coffee shop, with regret because Keisha had been good to me. I sold or donated everything I owned, except what would fit in a single suitcase. I bought a one-way ticket to Seattle, chosen because it was far away and because it rained there, and I wanted to go somewhere that felt like starting over. I was done with Phoenix. I was done with the Aldridge family. I was done with Harper. Wren Collins was taking flight, and she was not looking back. The preparation for disappearing completely took on a rhythm, almost meditative in its precision. Every step I took erased another part of Harper Aldridge and built up Wren Collins in her place. I closed my old bank account and opened a new one under my new name at a completely different bank, one with no branches in Phoenix. I went through every online account I had ever created and either deleted it or changed all the information associated with it. Email addresses, streaming services, shopping accounts, everything got stripped down and rebuilt. I quit my job with 2 weeks' notice, and Keisha, bless her, wrote me a glowing recommendation letter addressed to whom it may concern that carefully avoided mentioning my old name. "You are one of the best employees I have ever had," she told me on my last day. "I do not know what you are running from, but I hope you find what you are running toward." I hugged her hard, this woman who had stood between me and my family, who had protected me when she did not have to. Jade helped me pack, which mostly meant watching me sort through 4 years of college life and systematically destroy any evidence of where I was going or who I was becoming. We sat on the floor of my apartment, now empty except for boxes and bags, and she looked at me with worry in her eyes. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "They are your family, Harper. Wren. God, I need to get used to that." I smiled at her. "I have never been more sure of anything. You are more family to me than they ever were. You showed up at my graduation. You are here now. That is what family does." I made Jade promise she would never tell them where I went, and she swore it on her grandmother's grave. Mrs. Chen came by with a small box. "Open it when you get wherever you are going," she said. Inside was a delicate necklace, old and obviously precious. "It was my mother's," Mrs. Chen said. "You remind me of her. Strong, brave, willing to start over." I cried for the first time in weeks, and she held me while I did. The decoy was Jade's idea. "If they are tracking you, and it sounds like they are, you need to make them think you are going somewhere you are not." So I bought a bus ticket to Boston, paid cash, made sure to mention Boston loudly in the coffee shop a few days before I left. I told a coworker I was excited about Boston, about the history, about starting over on the East Coast. When I actually left Phoenix, I took that bus to Boston with my old phone in my pocket, the one registered to Harper Aldridge. I rode for 2 days, watching the landscape change outside my window. In Boston, I found a college student in the station who looked like he could use $50. "I need you to keep this phone on and charged for the next month," I told him. "Travel around with it, go to cafes, use the Wi-Fi, just keep it active." He looked at me like I was crazy, but took the money. My family would track that phone. They would think Harper had run to Boston. They would never think to look in Seattle. My last night in Phoenix, I walked through the city alone. I went to places that had mattered to me. The library where I had studied for finals. The park where I used to sit when my apartment felt too small. The diner where I had celebrated getting into college with Jade. I was not sad. I felt lighter with every step, like I was already halfway gone. I went back to my empty apartment and slept on the floor in my sleeping bag. And for the first time in months, I did not dream about my family. I dreamed about rain and evergreen trees, and a life that belonged only to me. The morning I left was gray and cool, unusual for Phoenix. I took an Uber to the airport, checked in under my new name, showed my new ID. The TSA agent barely looked at it. I boarded a plane to Seattle with nothing but a backpack and a suitcase. No laptop, no ties to my old life. Just clothes and the few things I could not bear to leave behind. As the plane took off and Phoenix disappeared beneath the clouds, I felt something I had not felt in 22 years. Free. Completely, utterly free. No one on this plane knew Harper Aldridge. No one in Seattle would know her either. There was only Wren now, and Wren could be anyone she wanted. Seattle greeted me with rain, of course. I stepped out of the airport into a steady drizzle, and felt like I had come home to a place I had never been. I found a cheap hotel for the first few nights, the kind where they do not ask too many questions and take cash without blinking. I spent the next day walking through the city, getting soaked, loving every minute of it. The Pike Place Market with its flying fish and flower stalls, the waterfront with its gray water and sea smell, the coffee shops on every corner, because this was Seattle and coffee was a religion. On day 2, I bought a newspaper and started circling job listings. On day 3, I went to a bookstore that had a help wanted sign in the window. The owner, a woman named Margot in her 50s with reading glasses and a warm smile, interviewed me right there among the stacks. "Why Seattle?" she asked. "Why books?" I told her the truth, or part of it. I needed a fresh start, and books have always been the one constant in my life. She hired me on the spot. "You start Monday," she said. "Welcome to Elliott Bay Books, Wren." Finding an apartment took another week. I finally found a tiny studio near the water, small but clean, with windows that looked out onto the gray sky and the Sound. The landlord, an older man who seemed to appreciate quiet tenants, did not run a credit check, just asked for first and last month's rent in cash. I paid it, got the keys, and stood in my empty apartment with rain pattering against the windows. This was mine. This space, this city, this life. I had built it from nothing, and no one could take it away from me. I set up my sleeping bag in the corner, ordered pizza from the place down the street, and ate it sitting on the floor watching the rain. I did not miss Phoenix. I did not miss the Aldridge family. I did not even miss Harper. She had been a girl who tried too hard to be loved by people who were incapable of loving her. Wren was different. Wren had no one to please but herself. 3 months into my new life in Seattle, the Aldridge family finally understood that I was not coming back. According to Jade, who called me on a burner phone I had given her for emergencies, the panic had set in slowly and then all at once. My mother had tried every method of contact for weeks before accepting that I had truly blocked her. My father had kept the private investigator on retainer, and when the trail went cold in Boston, he had hired another one, then another. They tracked my old phone to various locations around Boston, growing increasingly frustrated when Harper Aldridge never materialized, never withdrew money from an ATM, never showed up on any camera footage, because Harper Aldridge did not exist anymore, not in any way they could find. Finally, in desperation, my mother had filed a missing person report with the Phoenix police. The police investigation was brief. They pulled my records, saw the legal name change, and put 2 and 2 together. A detective called my mother and explained gently that I was not missing. I was an adult who had legally changed my name and left town. There was no crime. There was no case. My mother, according to Jade's sources, which came from a cousin who was friends with Jade's sister, had not taken it well. "What do you mean there is nothing you can do?" she had screamed at the detective. "She is my daughter. She could be in danger. She could be having a mental breakdown." The detective had been firm. "Ma'am, your daughter made a conscious, legal choice to start a new life. That is her right. Unless you have evidence of foul play or that she is a danger to herself, we cannot and will not pursue this further." The police closed the case. The Aldridge family had no legal recourse, no way to force me to come back, no power over me at all. Thanksgiving arrived, and with it came the first real test of the family's ability to maintain their perfect facade. Extended family always gathered at my parents' house for the holiday, aunts and uncles and cousins crowding around a table that groaned under the weight of too much food. This year, people noticed the empty chair. "Where is Harper?" my Aunt Lorraine asked. According to Jade's intel network, which was impressively thorough, my mother had practiced her answer. "Oh, she is busy with work. You know how it is. Young people these days, always so focused on their careers." But Aunt Lorraine was not stupid, and she was also the family gossip, which meant she could smell a lie from a mile away. "Patricia, Harper has not posted anything on social media in months. I tried to call her and her number is disconnected. Where is she really?" The table had gone quiet. All eyes on my mother. That is when Sienna, never able to read a room, snapped. "She abandoned us, okay? Over nothing. She is being dramatic and selfish, and we are all better off without her." The gossip spread through the extended family like wildfire. By Christmas, everyone knew. The perfect Aldridge family was not so perfect. One of the daughters had disappeared, had literally erased herself from existence, and there was no good explanation for why. The family whisper network, which my mother had always wielded like a weapon, turned on her. People started asking questions. What had happened to make Harper leave? Must have been something serious for her to go to such lengths. Had they been cruel to her? Had there been abuse? My mother's friends at the country club suddenly found reasons to be busy when she called. My father's business associates mentioned, casually, that they had heard his family was going through something difficult. The social consequences my parents had always feared, the judgment they had always avoided by presenting a perfect face to the world, came crashing down on them. Inside the house, the family structure crumbled. My father blamed my mother for being too lenient, for not controlling Sienna's jealousy, for letting things get this far. My mother blamed Sienna for being spoiled, for demanding too much attention, for making Harper feel unwanted. Sienna blamed everyone but herself, insisting she had done nothing wrong, that Harper was simply weak and oversensitive. The baby arrived, a girl they named Madison, and my parents barely showed up at the hospital. The joy my mother had anticipated, the first grandchild she had planned the baby shower for, felt hollow. Madison cried constantly, and Sienna, overwhelmed and sleep-deprived, called my mother for help. My mother came, but there was resentment now, on both sides. "You wanted me to prioritize you," my mother said during one argument that Jade's sources reported in gleeful detail. "Well, I did. And look what it cost me." Trent, surprisingly, was the one who started asking questions. He was 26 now, supposedly mature, and something about my absolute disappearance had shaken him. He went down to the basement one day, looking for something he could not remember, and found a box of my old things that I had deliberately left behind. Photos from high school, report cards with straight A grades, a journal from when I was 16. He opened the journal and started reading, page after page of pain, of feeling invisible, of wondering what I had to do to make my family love me. There was an entry from the day I had decided to go to college, where I wrote about how excited I was, but also how scared, because I knew my family would not help me, and I did not know if I could do it alone. There was an entry from my 18th birthday, the one they had forgotten. If I disappeared, would they even notice? I had written, or would they just be relieved they had one less person to pretend to care about? Trent took the journal upstairs and confronted our parents. "Did you read this?" he demanded. "Do you understand what we did to her?" My father dismissed it. "That is teenage melodrama. Everyone feels misunderstood at that age." But Trent pushed back, and that alone was shocking. "No, Dad, not everyone, and not like this. We destroyed her, and when she finally stood up for herself, we called her dramatic." My mother cried, real tears this time. "I did love her," she insisted. "I do love her. I just did not know how to show her. Sienna needed so much, and Harper always seemed so independent." Trent looked at her with something like disgust. She seemed independent because she had to be, because none of us gave her a choice. He hired a private investigator, his own this time, and told the guy to find me so he could apologize. The investigator found the name change record, but the new name was sealed by court order. He tracked me to Boston, lost the trail, hit dead ends. Trent spent thousands of dollars and got nowhere. I had made sure of that. The cost to the family was not just social or emotional. My father's business suffered because he was distracted, snapping at clients, missing meetings. My mother developed anxiety, started taking pills to sleep, to wake up, to get through the day. Sienna's marriage strained under the weight of new parenthood and the guilt that she refused to acknowledge, but that seeped into every interaction. Her husband Kyle started working late, avoiding coming home, and when he did come home, they fought. Baby Madison picked up on the tension and cried more, slept less. The house that had always been perfect on the outside, carefully decorated and maintained, started to feel like a mausoleum. My father moved into the guest room. My mother redecorated my old bedroom, trying to erase the evidence of my existence, but then broke down crying when she saw my graduation photo in a drawer. Trent moved out entirely, got his own apartment, and stopped coming to family dinners. The Aldridge family, so carefully constructed, so meticulously maintained, fell apart, and I was 3,000 miles away, living my life, free. 6 months after I vanished from Phoenix, I stood in my little bookstore in Seattle, restocking the poetry section, and realized I was happy, not the careful, conditional happiness that came from making other people pleased with me, not the temporary relief of a brief moment when I was not actively being hurt. Real happiness. The bone-deep kind that comes from living a life that belongs entirely to you. I had been promoted to manager at Elliott Bay Books after Margot saw how I handled customers, how I organized inventory, how I cared about matching people with the right books. My coworkers were kind. My regulars knew my name. Every morning I walked to work in the rain, stopped at a coffee shop where the barista knew my order, and felt grateful. I had friends now, real ones. There was Sam, who worked at the bookstore with me and had an encyclopedic knowledge of science fiction. There was Iris, my neighbor in the apartment next door, who was a painter and invited me to gallery openings. And there was Liam. Liam was 24, a graphic designer with kind eyes and a quiet way of moving through the world. We met when he came into the bookstore looking for a gift for his sister. I helped him find the perfect book, and he asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. I said yes, surprising myself. On our first date, I told him I had left a toxic family situation and did not like to talk about it. He nodded and said, "I understand. You do not owe anyone your story until you are ready." We had been dating for 3 months now, taking things slow, and it felt healthy in a way I had never experienced. He did not push. He did not demand. He just existed next to me, steady and warm. Then Trent found me. I still do not know how he managed it. Maybe Jade slipped up in a conversation. Maybe the private investigator got lucky. Maybe someone from Phoenix saw me on the street in Seattle and reported back. However it happened, on a gray Tuesday afternoon, I looked through the bookstore window and saw him standing on the sidewalk. My brother, older, tired-looking, but unmistakably Trent. My heart started racing. Every instinct screamed at me to run out the back door, to grab my things and disappear again, but something stopped me. Maybe curiosity, maybe exhaustion, maybe the knowledge that I had built a life solid enough that his presence could not destroy it. I asked Margot to stay close, just in case, and I walked outside. "Harper," he said, then caught himself. "Wren. God, I am sorry. Wren." I crossed my arms, every muscle in my body tense. "How did you find me?" I asked. He looked ashamed. "Through Jade. Not on purpose. I ran into her at a conference in Phoenix and mentioned I was trying to find you to apologize. She did not tell me directly, but she mentioned Seattle in passing. I have been searching the city for 2 weeks. I just want to talk. Please." I should have told him to leave. I should have called the police, gotten a restraining order, protected the new life I had worked so hard to build. Instead, I said, "You have 5 minutes." We sat on a bench outside the bookstore, far enough apart that we were not touching, and he talked. "I read your journal," he said. "The one from high school. You left it in the basement. I read the whole thing, and I realized what we did to you. What I did to you. I was a terrible brother, Wren. I followed Mom and Dad's lead. I made fun of you. I dismissed you. And I am sorry. I am so sorry." I listened, my face carefully blank. "They miss you," he continued. "Mom is a mess. Dad is drinking too much. Sienna's marriage is falling apart. The family is disintegrating, and we deserve it. We drove you away, and now we are paying the price." I waited for him to finish, and when he finally ran out of words, I spoke. "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you sorry now? Is it because you finally understand what you did to me, or is it because you are facing consequences?" He flinched. "Both," he admitted. "I am not going to lie to you. It is both. But reading your journal, seeing how much you were hurting, understanding that we made you feel invisible, that changed something in me. I do not expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I know. I see it now. And I am sorry." I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "I do not forgive you," I said. "And I do not need to. Forgiveness would require me to care what happens to you, and I do not. You are not sorry I was hurt. You are sorry you are facing consequences. You want me to come back so the family can feel better, so Mom can stop crying, so everyone can pretend everything is fine. But it is not fine. It never was." I stood up, looked down at him, and said what I had been carrying for months. "I worked 3 jobs to pay for college while you all paid for Sienna to live in luxury. I missed meals so I could send birthday money that you forgot to acknowledge. I sacrificed everything for a family that never saw me as anything more than a servant, a scapegoat, someone to blame when things went wrong. You did not come to my graduation. You deliberately scheduled a party on the same day to punish me for existing, for daring to have accomplishments you did not think were important. And then you acted like I was the problem when I decided I deserved better. You have 1 minute to leave before I call the police," I continued, my voice steady. Trent looked like I had slapped him. "They miss you," he said again, grasping. "Do they?" I asked. "Do they miss me? Or do they miss the idea of me? The daughter who was supposed to be grateful for scraps? The sister who was supposed to stay small so Sienna could shine? The employee who worked for free and never complained?" I shook my head. "Tell them I am dead. Tell them I moved to Europe. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. But do not ever contact me again. You do not get to be in my life. None of you do." That is what you wanted when you skipped my graduation, when you mocked me, when you made it clear I did not matter. Well, congratulations, you got what you wanted. Trent stood up slowly. For a moment, I thought he might argue, might try one more manipulation. Instead, he just nodded. I understand, he said. For what it is worth, I think you are incredibly brave, and I hope you are happy. Then he walked away, and I watched him disappear into the Seattle crowd. I stood there for a long time, rain starting to fall, and waited for the panic or the sadness or the regret to hit. None of it came. I felt nothing, not hate, not love, just a peaceful indifference. They had been a chapter of my life, and that chapter was closed. I went back inside the bookstore, and Margot handed me a cup of tea. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, and meant it. I really am. That night, I had my first therapy session with Dr. Simmons. A recommendation from Iris. I told her about Trent's visit, about the family I had left behind, about the guilt I sometimes felt for cutting them off completely. She leaned forward, her expression gentle but firm. Wren, you did not cut them off. You removed yourself from an abusive situation. Those are not the same thing, and you do not owe them anything, not your presence, not your forgiveness, not your pain. You owe yourself peace. I cried in her office, deep heaving sobs that I had been holding back for 6 months, and when I was done, I felt lighter. Life as Wren Collins continued, better than I had dared hope. I hosted a book club at the store every Thursday night, and it became one of the highlights of my week. Smart, interesting people gathering to discuss stories, to argue about themes, to laugh and drink wine and exist in community. My birthday came around, and Jade flew up from Phoenix to celebrate with me. We went out to dinner with Liam, Sam, Iris, and a few other friends, and they sang to me off-key and gave me thoughtful gifts. It was the first birthday in my life where I felt genuinely celebrated. Liam proposed 2 months later, not with a big production, just a quiet moment in our apartment after we had cooked dinner together. I love you, he said. I love the life we are building. I want to keep building it with you. Will you marry me? I said yes, and I meant it with every part of me. We planned a small wedding, just close friends, no family. Jade was my maid of honor. Mrs. Chen, bless her heart, attended via video call from Phoenix, crying happy tears and telling me I looked beautiful. Margot closed the bookstore for the day so she and the staff could come. Liam's family welcomed me without question, without prying into my past, just accepting that I was the person their son loved. We got married on a beach in the San Juan Islands, rain threatening but holding off, and when the officiant said, "You may kiss your wife," I kissed my husband and felt like I had finally found home. I learned what family really meant. Not blood, not obligation, not shared DNA that bound you to people who hurt you. Family was who showed up, who celebrated your victories without jealousy, who mourned your losses with genuine grief, who loved you not despite your flaws but including them. Blood relatives had failed every test. My chosen family passed them all. On rainy Seattle mornings, which were most mornings, I sat in my favorite chair by the window with coffee in my hands and watched the city wake up. My phone rang sometimes, unknown numbers that I declined and blocked. They were still looking, probably, still hoping I would come back, would forgive, would make everything easy for them again. I never answered. I had nothing left to say to them. I started writing, something I had always wanted to do but never had time for when I was working 3 jobs and trying to earn love that would never come. Short stories at first, then longer pieces, exploring themes of identity and reinvention and what it means to build yourself from scratch. One of my stories got published in a literary magazine, and when I saw my name in print, Wren Collins in black and white, I felt proud. Not the desperate need for validation I had carried as Harper, but quiet satisfaction in work well done. Liam framed the magazine and hung it in our apartment. My wife, the published author, he said with genuine pride. That was what love looked like, uncomplicated support, joy in someone else's success, presence. Years will pass, I know. My family might keep looking, or they might eventually give up and craft a story that makes them feel better. Harper ran away because she was troubled. Harper cut us off because she was unstable. Harper died, maybe, in their version, so they can grieve and accept sympathy and never confront what they did. It does not matter. Their story is not mine to control. I have my own story now, and it is a good one. It is about a girl who was made to feel invisible, who decided she would rather disappear on her own terms than keep fading away under the weight of family cruelty. It is about a woman who built herself new, who chose her name and her city and her people with intention. It is about peace. On the days when doubt creeps in, when I wonder if I was too harsh, too unforgiving, too cold, I remember that morning, my graduation day, standing in my apartment in my cap and gown, checking a phone that never rang, seeing photos of my family at a party they scheduled deliberately to hurt me. I remember my mother hanging up to take group photos. I remember Sienna's toast about me being jealous. I remember the screenshots of their group chat, the casual cruelty, the premeditated pain. And I remember that I did not choose to leave a family. I chose to leave people who had never been family to begin with. That is not coldness. That is survival. That is self-preservation. That is love, finally, for myself. So here I am, Wren Collins, manager of a bookstore in Seattle, wife to a good man, friend to people who actually show up, author of stories that matter to me. The rain falls outside my window. My coffee is warm in my hands. My life is quiet, peaceful, mine. No drama, no manipulation, no pain. Just existence on my own terms, built from nothing, sustained by choice. They wanted me to disappear, so I did. But I did not vanish into nothing. I vanished into everything I was always meant to be, and I have never looked back. So I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family for your own well-being? Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? How did you find your way to peace? Drop your story in the comments below because these conversations matter, and knowing we are not alone in these experiences can be incredibly healing. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss future stories. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose yourself, that it is okay to walk away from toxicity, even when it wears the face of family. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are, whatever you are going through, you find your own version of peace. You deserve people who celebrate you, who see you, who show up, and if you do not have that yet, I promise you, it exists. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to go find it. Take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and remember, family is not who you are born to. Family is who shows up.